Southborough Historical Society and to the new History and Arts Center at Weigl Village Hall. I'm Michael Whitehon, the President and CEO, and I am surprisingly also your MC for the evening. So we will see how this goes on out-of-home television. Whoa! I'm quite up the chair too. Let's see if it holds me. We are delighted this evening to share an incredible lineup of storytellers. The program will last about 90 minutes. There are restrooms to the back of you here, because people keep missing them, and there's also one downstairs, just in case you need to sneak out. We encourage you to take time at the end of the event to let the storytellers know if their story or music inspired you. And if you're curious about telling your own story, please let Catherine Weber know. Catherine, stand up and just say hello to everybody. Catherine this entire event. She was our consultant from the very beginning on the Southborough Arts Council to help us get this whole thing started. It has been a 4-year arduous process, as some of you may know. And she's been really instrumental. And this is all her evening, so we owe her a great debt. She's also planning to teach a 4-week workshop in moth storytelling this fall, and so if you're interested in trying to do this yourself, she's the woman to talk to. Okay, our first community storyteller for the night, Sofia Ginsburg, hails from Southborough. I first performed this story in a Storybridge showcase in 2023. Let's give Sofia an enthusiastic welcome. Thank you, Sofia.
This is actually a little bit of a different story, but still, it's sort of a little bit about my life and everything sort of with having to do with Crossroads, that sort of the theme of the night. So, in 2017, it's December, mid-afternoon, and my family and I are in the central train station in Stockholm, Sweden. For those that don't know, it is a building turn of the last century, so very much the architecture is a vibe of like a Grand Central Station, but on a much smaller scale, so maybe probably closer to like a South Station. But it's a big, beautiful building, has these big windows, which you can't see anything out of because it's already dark, because it's wintertime in Sweden and the sun sets at like 2:30, so it's dark. But inside it's bright, it's airy and noisy, and there's people coming and going. It's right after Christmas, and it is probably the last place that you want to be with 2 small, slightly feral children. But why I chose this, I'll never know. But so we're here, we're waiting to meet someone, so I'm nervous, kind of excited. And my sons, who are 3 and 5 at the time, are also excited. But they're excited because really close to where we were standing, there was this sort of train station cafe. And they had just spotted the enormous display case full of like all of the pastries you can imagine. And so at least the 5-year-old was working me pretty hard to get the sugar fix. And then my husband, luckily, seeing the panicked expression on my face, because I'm told I don't hide it well, offered to distract them and take them and to get their sugar fix. So I'm very grateful. So now I'm standing there alone and sort of off to the side, almost coming in from the darkness, I see this elderly woman coming towards me. And she's tall, slender, very well dressed, like shock of white hair, and she looks familiar. And even though I don't remember her face, it still feels like I know her. And before I realize or have time to process, she's hugging me. And it's my mom. And she's hugging me for the first time in 25 years. So, when I was 7 and our family was living in Sweden, around that time my parents got divorced, and my older sister and I ended up living with my dad. A couple years later, my dad had gotten remarried and at some point decided he wanted to move. So when I was 10, he, my stepmom, my older sister, and I packed up our things and our giant dogs, and we moved from Sweden to America and to Florida, of all places. years, not only struggling to learn a new language, but also struggling to make friends and to fit in, and it was lonely. During that time, I wrote to my mom. She never wrote back. She almost never called. I remember there was maybe 2 phone calls in 4 years. And finally, I got angry. So angry that when I was 14, I decided to write her a strong word letter. It's probably more of an indictment of everything that had ever gone wrong and asking her why she didn't love me. And finally, she responded. But the response was confusing because in it she said, I haven't heard from you. Will you write, I love you and I miss you? And that made me mad. For some reason, all I felt was anger. And I decided, you know what? I'm gonna move on. Don't wanna deal with this. And I did. And then as I got older, I moved literally, from Florida up to Boston, new school, new city, graduate school, met the love of my life over here. And then a couple years into my first job out of school, she sent a letter to my job. Our address was private, it was hard to find our address at the time. So she sent it to work, and then she sent another one. And the messages were still the same. I want to hear from you. I love you. I miss you. And even though I was still mad after all this time, I could feel something softening. But it wasn't until my children were born and I started to watch them grow that anger started to soften. And I started to sort of open up to the possibility of making a different choice than the anger. And even to see that maybe some of the choices she had made were because of other things I didn't understand at the time. And so we started to correspond, and eventually it led to sort of this time where we're now meeting in Sweden for the first time. And I wanted my children to also know their past and to know their heritage. So after they met her, which was really awkward because she wasn't very comfortable with English, my husband thankfully took them to look at the trains, and my mom and I got to sit in this train station cafe and talk. And then we walked around the building and we talked, and I told her everything that I could, the letters I had written, the times I had tried to call, and she did the same with the letters that she had written and all the times she had called. And someone had made the choice to not let us connect. And it ended up leading to this moment of realization, and then looking back, that I used to always think about that as Crossroads as being sort of the metaphorical train station, or like the fork in the road. It was this big decision from which everything else flowed. But in reality, and while it was meeting her in this moment, it was everything leading up to that. And it wasn't all of these big giant forks in the road, but there were all these tiny little forks all along the way that we constantly navigated, and that led us to that big day. So, thank you.
It's okay. You did a great job. Thank you, Sofia. Okay, next up to the stage, we welcome Keith Simmons. Keith is the co-owner of Stronger Uprising Gym, where he inspires his clients to work hard and be their best selves. Boy, I need some of that. Welcome, Keith.
Rhabdomyolysis is a medical condition where, in my case, due to physical exertion, you experience a lot of muscle damage and breakdown. And toxins from that breakdown enter your bloodstream, and it can be really tough for your kidneys, and in severe cases cause kidney failure, and even death. I experienced rhabdo on back-to-back weekends to start my junior year of basketball at the College of the Holy Cross. The first weekend we had 2 days, and after the second practice, I started to experience a muscle cramp. And very quickly, those muscle cramps spread throughout my entire body. And if you ever had a muscle cramp, you know how painful they can be. Just imagine your entire body cramping at the same time. It was and still is some of the worst physical pain I've ever experienced. It got so bad that I had to be transported to the hospital for IV fluids. After I was released from the hospital, we thought it was a fluke. We thought maybe I just didn't drink enough or maybe I didn't eat enough between the 2 practices. So I sat out a day or 2 and returned to practice. Then the next weekend it happened again. And it was even worse this time. Full body cramping, heart rate through the roof, and even beginning to lose consciousness. 911 was called and I was transported back to the hospital. This time I sat out for a while. We ran all the tests, did blood work, did a muscle biopsy, and unfortunately we didn't find an answer right away. So it became something I dealt with for that season. So at the ends of games, when I started to feel really fatigued, started to experience muscle cramps, I'd be pulled out. And I was a good player, I was important to my team, so when I had to sit out, it affected our performance. We lost games, and I just felt like I was letting everyone down. I was letting my teammates down, my coach down, I was letting the school down, and we had championship aspirations. And we just weren't reaching that standard because I was unhealthy. So it began to mess with me mentally and emotionally. And I started to have what I now know are panic attacks. So when I would feel those cramps, would feel that fatigue at the end of games, I'd be panicked, my heart would be racing. I would be sweating profusely, even if I wasn't playing at that moment. And it began to ruin the game of basketball for me, a sport I had loved since I could remember. So as the year went on, I continued to struggle. And then one night, while feeling particularly down, I hopped on AOL Instant Messenger, like probably one of the first social media platforms, right? So you can put it in a way status on AIM, right? So I was feeling pretty low, so I posted, "This just isn't fun anymore, period." And one of my assistant coaches saw it and he brought it to my head coach's attention. And you gotta understand, my head coach was one of these like tough, hard-nosed, old school, like that Bobby Knight era coach. So the next day, he calls me into his office right away, and he immediately starts laying into me. He's like, "What is this I hear about you posting in a public forum that this isn't fun?" And at first I didn't even know what he was talking about. He called it a public forum. but I quickly realized he was talking about my aim away status. And I'm like, "Coach, well, it hasn't been fun. I'm doing everything. I'm drinking all the weird drinks, I'm taking all the electrolytes, I'm taking these weird medications. At one point, I was drinking pickle juice because it has a lot of sodium in it, right? I was getting IVs before and after every game to try to stay hydrated. I was even holding ice bags in my hand during stoppages of play to try to cool myself down so I wouldn't sweat so much and become so depleted. And nothing was working. So I'm like, "Coach, it hasn't been fun." And he is like seething. He's like, "You think this is supposed to be fun? This is not supposed to be fun. It's about competition. It's about work ethic. It's about pushing through life's tough situations. It's about life, Keith." And I'm there and I'm just like struggling. And my coach had fought and was in recovery remission from testicular cancer, right? So he's looking at me and he's just like, "When I was getting treatments and I was sick as a dog, do you think I wanted to stay up there at night and watch game film and spend all day in the gym? Absolutely not." But that's what I did because that's what you do when you're faced with tough situations, right? So we're going back and forth. And at one point he just stops, he looks at me, and he's like shaking his head, almost in like disgust. And he looks me right in the eye, he goes, "You're being a victim, and it's the last thing I would want for any player of mine is having this victimhood mentality. I'm ashamed of you. Get out of my office." And I could like feel the tears welling up in my eyes, so I got up and I rushed out of that office. And I immediately called my girlfriend, now my wife. I called my girlfriend and I'm like crying. I'm just like, "I don't know what to do. I'm doing everything. Coach is an asshole, right?" I don't know what to do. And she met me immediately and I just like cried in her arms that night. But somehow I picked myself back up. I went back to practice and I continued to struggle through that season. And ultimately, what we figured out was that for the style of play that I wanted to play, which was really aggressive, really intense, I was too heavy. I had bulked up too much during college. So that summer, I went on a diet, stopped drinking sugary drinks, did a lot of conditioning, lost the weight, and then my senior year was great. We won the championship, we went to the NCAA tournament, I was player of the year, all the things. but I will often think back to that night. And while that coach and I never had a conversation about that particular night, he would always say to me as I moved towards graduation, that it was his job to be so tough, so demanding, and even cruel sometimes, that there'd be nothing in life that would break me, right? That any tough situation I could get to. Tough situations like finally having an opportunity to chase a lifelong dream of playing in the NBA and having NBA trials, and then being told after those trials that you're too small and not athletic enough to play in this league. Difficult situations like doing everything right, marrying your college sweetheart, making sure your relationship is strong, making sure you're financially prepared to start your family, and then you get pregnant, and you leave every prenatal appointment holding your crying wife in your arms as you learn the term fetal growth restriction, and then you lose that baby at 20 weeks. Tough situations like take some of the money that you earned playing basketball in Europe for nearly a decade, away from your family, away from your friends, dedicating your life to the sport. You take that money and you pour it into a gym business, and now 4 months later, COVID hits and the world shuts down. And everyone thinks the gym is the most dangerous place to be. So you work for 3 years for free. Half of that time you're paying just to operate and survive. So now, as a 41-year-old husband, father, and business owner, when I think back to that night, yes, it was cruel. It was cruel, absolutely it was. But the overall feeling I have is that of gratitude and appreciation. Because it was nights like that that helped prepare me for anything that this beautiful, chaotic, cruel, and wonderful life can throw at me. Thank you.
Wow, Keith, now I am definitely coming to you. Our third community storyteller, Bonnie, is it Weigl?
Weigl.
Weigl, LCC, my German from Milwaukee is coming back to me. There you go. Was discovered in Catherine Weber's storytelling masterclass. Yay, Catherine! Now a Westboro resident, Bonnie lived in Southborough for 27 years, where they raised 2 sons. Welcome, Bonnie.
So, on December 6, 2012, I received a phone call. The caller identified himself as the Dean of Students in the College of Communication at Boston University. Our 23-year-old son, Christopher, was a graduate student there studying photojournalism. His goal was to travel the world with a camera and tell people stories. My immediate thought was he must be receiving an award. Why else would the dean be calling me? But indeed, the dean went on to say that there had been a collision. Our son on his bicycle with a semi-truck. I envisioned myself jumping in the car as soon as I got off the phone to go to whatever hospital Christopher was in. But then the dean went on to say that the result of this collision was that Christopher was deceased. Deceased. Doesn't that mean dead? Deceased? Our son died that day in that collision, and my world fell apart. I've always wondered about what really happens to people after they die. As a little girl, I can remember asking my mother that question and thinking that dying and going away for eternity seemed like a really bad thing to happen to anyone, especially to me. As a teenager, I referred to myself as an agnostic. That seemed like a really cool way to refer to myself and gave me some perceived intellectual authority to label myself that way. Now I was being faced with this question again in an unimaginable way. So my husband, Andy, our other son, Dustin, and I grieved, each in our own way. We went to counseling, we did the things you're supposed to do. We even saw a medium wanting desperately to communicate with Christopher. That theme of what really happens to people when they die had slapped me in the face, hard. As time went on, we lived our lives, we went back to work. We learned that everyone has a story, sometimes a sad one or a tragic one. And if you share your story with people, they tend to share theirs. We were the recipients of a lot of stories. And so 2 years later, in 2014, when we learned that a couple in the next town had also lost their 23-year-old son tragically, I felt called to step up. I wrote that couple a letter, Sally and Bob. In the letter, I shared our contact information, the name of our grief counselor, who we liked very much. I never heard back from that couple, but it felt good to have reached out to them at a time that I knew they were in pain and hurting. And it made my heart happy to be able to do that for them. Fast forward to 2023. We attended a shiva for a friend who had lost her dad unexpectedly. The house was jam-packed with people, so we went outside and sat at a table. The people at the table were very friendly, so we chatted with them. We shared our first names, where we lived, the fact that Andy had started a photography business as a retirement gig. He had done this to feel closer to Christopher, though we didn't share that very personal part of the story with these complete strangers. At one point, the woman sitting across from me changed her gaze and asked what our last name was. I told her. Her look became more intent, and she stared at me and said, "I think we need to talk." I realized in that moment, putting some puzzle pieces together, that this was Sally, as in Sally and Bob, who I had written the letter to 9 years earlier. We got together. They were lovely and heartbroken, as were we. We knew that we would continue this friendship and continue to get to know these people. What were the chances that we went to the same shiva, sat at the same table, figured out that this was a couple from 9 years earlier? No freaking way. And I know you're thinking, well, that's kind of cool, but it's not the end of the story. Later that year, we bought a condo in a 55-plus community in Westborough. We've been thinking that moving to a 55-plus community was going to be our next step. An opportunity presented itself, and we took it. At some point in the sales process, we inquired about who the immediate neighbors were. We learned that our next door neighbors were Sally and Bob. So now we live on the other side of a shared townhouse wall. We laugh together, we cry together. It gives me strength to have them there. I still wonder about that big question of what really happens when you die. But I believe there are powerful forces in the universe that we can't begin to understand, that are there to help us when we need it most. And I know that our sons, Christopher and John, are doing a high five somewhere at having succeeded in their goal to bring us together. Thank you. Sally and Bob are here.
Wow. Okay. Thank you, Bonnie. That was fantastic. Now, we are excited to welcome our featured storytellers, who have all performed on the Moth stage in Boston or Somerville. First up is Chris Bell, who is a 6-time Moth Story Slam winner, I say that after a few drinks, and the 2024 champion of the Great Hartford Annual Story Slam. Welcome, Chris.
I'm just going to be real. I like to move around when I tell stories, and I'm afraid I'm going to fall off this platform. We're going to see how this is going to go.
You can take it out of it.
I like both hands. It's Saturday morning. I'm watching my son Zach play soccer, and his team is getting massacred. This motley crew of 6th graders is all scattered across the field like a confused cloud of tadpoles. All you can hear is the sound of penalty whistles, bickering, and disappointment. Across the field, the other team, they look like they just came back from the Junior Olympics. And their coach, who I call Mr. Sunglasses, calls out a play in this fancy Bluetooth headset, and I watch his players move the ball up the field with the tactical precision of SEAL Team 6. Now my son's coach is screaming, "Defense!" But unfortunately, it lands like the code word for panic. Because our kids, they start stumbling, bumping into each other, doing anything to get away from the ball. Meanwhile, our goalie, who looks like he never wanted to play goalie, decides to duck instead of taking another ball to the face. And I am just standing there, watching this hot mess. And I see my son in the center of it. He's hunched over, holding his knees, breathing heavy. And then I see him slightly turn his head and look at me to see if I'm watching him. And in the moment I see the look on his face, I see myself as a 14-year-old freshman in high school. I'm standing on the football field, practicing for my first game, and it's not going very well. As a running back, my job is simple. When the quarterback holds up the ball, I grab it and run for a touchdown. The problem is, when I get nervous, my hands start to shake, and I always fumble the ball. The truth is, I know more about Dungeons and Dragons than I do touchdowns and tackles. On the other hand, my father, he was a big football star in high school, so in his spare time, he likes to watch the games instead of rolling dice and battling evil wizards with me. But when I told him I made the football team, he lit up like I said I was going to the Super Bowl. And he promised to come to my first game, and we'd even get pizza afterwards. So I don't want him to come and see me fumble the ball. I just want him to come and see that I'm good at this like him. So over the next few weeks, I practiced 3 basic movements. Spread my fingers, grip the ball, and tuck it in tight. Over and over, I practice until my hands ache and my fears callous. On game day, we face the Titans, A towering team of 25 who all look like grown men who pay bills and barbecue. I'm in the huddle, heart pounding. I spot my father in the stands with the other parents. The coach calls out sweep left, and I know I'm about to get the ball. Unfortunately, I think the Titans know it too. The play starts. I sprint towards the quarterback. The Titans come in, crashing, tossing our team around like gorillas escaping the zoo on Family Fun Day. But I dip my shoulders, lunge forward, and right before our quarterback crumbles, I clamp onto that ball like a vice grip. I got it, and I'm not letting go. Now, I was so focused on not fumbling the ball that I never stopped to think about what I'd do once I got it. And that's when a wall of bodies blocks out the sun. I cut left, I cut right, looking for daylight, but all I can find are hands and helmets. My body is thrown to the ground with the force of a skydiver whose parachute doesn't open. And after the ref peels piles of players off me, I stagger to my feet in full body agony. And that's when I hear a voice rise from the crowd. What the hell is he doing? Running like a damn chicken with no head. I guess they just let anyone on this team. Now, before the game, the coach warned us that some of the other players or even their parents might shout out some things to try to get our mind out of the game. So as I hobble back to the huddle and the criticism continues and it's joined by laughter from the crowd, I just hold my head down, hoping that no one can see the tears starting to form underneath my helmet. Because right now, I am being mocked in front of my entire high school. And that voice in the crowd, it's my father. On the next play, the coach decides to give me another chance. Sweep right. And this time, I just fumble the ball. After the game, there's no conversation or pizza. I grow up not seeing how my father always made me feel as being wrong. I just see it as another stupid thing that I've done to prove to him that I'm just not good enough. But as I start to get older and more mature, I start to listen to my father talk about his past. I mean, really listen with adult ears. And I start to see that there is a little boy that hides in his eyes. And that little boy often cried when he was shuffled between two young parents. That little boy became a high school football star who wasn't allowed to graduate next to his white teammates. That little boy became a soldier in the Army, stationed in Alaska with only 3 other men, who all petitioned to have the Negro reassigned. And as I listen to my father get lost in these stories, I start to see that there's always been someone or something that made him feel like he wasn't good enough. Now, that's not an excuse for his behavior or the decisions he made, but it did help me understand one very important thing. It was never about me. Now I'm the father. I'm standing on the soccer field, and my son is looking at me to see if I'm disappointed or ashamed. Across the field, the other team, they're already celebrating. And that coach, Mr. Sunglasses, points finger guns at our kids and shouts, "Another one bites the dust, booyah!" And I thought we were supposed to teach these kids how to kick a ball, not how to kick other people when they're down. So powered by the groans of several other pissed off parents, I march straight to the other side, stand in front of this so-called coach, and start cheering for my son's team. But I don't only cheer, I put on a whole halftime show. I'm dancing and prancing with invisible pom-poms, and the other parents shout out so much support that everyone on the field witnesses a miracle. For the first time in my son's long 19-game season, his team actually scores a goal. Now the kids are all jumping up and down, high-fiving, giving each other hugs, falling over, even though they still lose the game, 17-1. After the game, my son comes limping over, knobby knees and elbows covered in dirt and scrapes, and he says, "Dad, please don't cheer for me anymore." And as hard as it is not to explain myself, I just meekly smile and agree. And as I watch him run off to the car excited to get some pizza, I just hope he knows if he ever wants me to cheer for him, I will. Because I already know what happens when a child is consistently knocked down. And I just want to see what could happen if a child is consistently built up. Thank you.
Well done, sir. I was just a little worried about our liability insurance there, but it didn't fall off the stage.
The night's not over.
Night's not over. Still got some beer downstairs. Next to share a story is Whitney Connolly. Whitney regularly makes the hike from her home in Essex, Massachusetts to the Mont-style Story Slams in Boston to share her, and this is Catherine writing, charmingly centered collection of neuro-idiosyncrasies. Wow. I can't wait to hear this. Let's hear it for Whitney Connolly.
So I have a story that I've been wanting to share in some form for a long time, and I was planning to share it tonight, but then I found out that my parents bought tickets. And so I came up with another story, but then I was on my way here, and I was thinking that 23 years after the fact might be long enough. It might be finally an appropriate time that my parents can know that when I was in college, I worked at a strip club. And before we all clutch our pearls too much, I worked at the front door. I was not in the back doing the pole thing, although I had many friends who were, and most of them were just trying to pay for law school, and they were wonderful. But my job was to sit at the front and to be cute enough that when the guys came in, they would pay the $20 to go through the swinging doors and see the naked girls. And we all make a lot of really questionable decisions when we're 19, 20 years old. And I definitely did. But I really actually don't think that job was one of them. It was a really fun place to work. I made really great friends there. It was a lot of fun. I made some good money. It was great. I made particularly good friends with the bouncers because since I was sitting at the front with the cash, there was always a bouncer, usually two, sitting with me. And we all became pretty good friends. And I became particularly good friends with a bouncer named Aaron, who, in retrospect, might not have been the best kind of person for me to be friends with. He was about 10 years older. He was covered head to toe in tattoos. He had a concealed weapons permit, and he thought being a bouncer at a place called Dockside Dolls off the side of the highway was a great career choice. But he was a really nice guy, and we became good friends. And one night after work, we got off at 2 in the morning. We all decided, as we often did, to go back to someone's apartment. And that night, we all decided to go back to my apartment and hang out. And one of the things about getting off of work at 2 in the morning is that usually all of the parking spaces in your apartment complex are taken when you get home. But I had one reserved, and my friends, including Aaron, knew that. And so as we're heading out to our cars, Aaron jumps in his truck and yells across the parking lot, "I'm gonna get your parking space," and then he peels out. Now I need us all to remember that our frontal lobes are not fully developed at 19, okay? So I do what someone with a not developed frontal lobe does, and I jump in my little black Volkswagen Jetta and I peel out after him. And It's about a 15-minute drive. We're on the highway. It is deserted, but we are going way too fast. We're passing each other. We get off the highway, and the best way to get to my apartment is to cut through this neighborhood, which is what we do. And again, it's deserted, but we are making terrible decisions, okay? We're passing each other. We're yelling at each other. We're going way too fast, and then all of a sudden, out of seemingly nowhere, there's 2 cop cars. There's blue lights. One of them does that thing where they put on their lights and their siren and they go around us and then go sideways and like block our way. And suddenly there's a cop at my window and he's like, "Do you know why I pulled you over?" I was like, I still don't know what you're supposed to say when that happens. Like, are you supposed to say yes and then list all the things? Are you supposed to say no? Like, I have no idea, sir. Yeah, what's the protocol? But anyway, I think what I said was, "Speeding?" And he said, "Ma'am," which might have been the first time I was ma'amed in my whole life. And he said, "Ma'am, you were going 35 over the speed limit in a residential area. You passed in a no passing zone twice in a residential area, and you ran 2 stop signs in a residential area, and by my estimation, that's 5 counts of reckless driving. I'm gonna need your license and registration." And so I hand him my license and registration, and he walks away, and the other cop is doing the same, and Aaron's truck behind us. And then I'm sitting there and I'm like, how am I going to explain this to my parents? How am I going to explain this? Am I going to lose my license? Is my insurance gonna go through the roof? Am I going to jail? And now they expect this behavior from my younger brother, but not from me. And so I'm panicking about my status as the good child. But then I realized I should be more worried about Aaron behind me, because he is a very large black man covered in tattoos with a concealed weapons permit, and he has told me some stories that lead me to believe he probably has a record. So I'm suddenly more concerned about him, and I'm trying to look in my rearview mirror and make sure he's doing okay. But the cops are convening now. 2 more cars have arrived, police cars have arrived, and there's lights everywhere. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I got Aaron into this. Like, this is terrible. And while I'm sitting there thinking about it, all of a sudden I hear this frantic chatter over all of the police radios. And it's like in surround sound because we're surrounded. And suddenly this cop is back at my window and he throws my license and registration at me, and it hits the floor in the passenger side, and he goes, "This is your lucky day." And he goes, "Slow the fuck down. You're gonna get yourself killed. Don't be an idiot." He slams his fist on my window. And then as I'm picking up my license and registration, he's gone, and I look around and so are all the other cop cars. And they vanished. And I look back at Aaron and he just is kind of doing this. And so I drive very slowly to my apartment and he drives very slowly behind me. And I pull into my parking space and he pulls up behind me and he rolls down his window and he says, "I think I'm gonna go home." I think that's a good idea. And it has taken 23-ish years, but I finally found a way to tell my parents.
Mom and Dad, do you still hate your daughter for that? Or how does that go with you now? Oh, things we do when we're children. That would be a certain storytelling night, wouldn't it? Okay, next, I'm pleased to welcome to the stage Howard Cox. Howard is a Texas native and Boston University professor. He's made audiences laugh and reflect on stages like The Moth, Risk, and Riot Improv. Please welcome Howard Cox.
Whenever I fly on an airplane, I need to have 3 things. I need to have one of those fluffy neck pillows that everybody wears. I need to have a book, and I also need to have my big ears. Now let me explain. I have difficulty when I fly on an airplane. When the plane takes off, everything is fine. When the plane is going up, when it levels off, everything is fine. But the moment that the plane begins to descend, I have problems with my ears. Now, I'm not alone. Many people have problems like this. It has something to do with the pressure of the plane. It has something to do with the pressure in your head, the eustachian tubes, a bunch of stuff that I don't completely understand, but I know that I have problems. Now, a lot of people have kind of figured out how to deal with this. They blow in something, or they chew something, or they swallow something, or they take a deep breath. None of that stuff works for me. Now, on one day, I was on the plane goes up, levels off, begins to descend. I begin to have a miserable experience. It is that I am sweating, I am having a hard time, I want to pull my clothes off, and I'm sorry to leave you with that image for right now, but it is a horrible experience. So the flight attendant comes up and she says, "Sir, I think you're having a problem." I said, "Yes." She says, "I bet it's your ears." She says, "I think I've got something for you." So she went to the back, to the galley kitchen, and she took those 2 cups, you know, the cups they put water and other liquid in. She then took 2 paper towels. She wet them with warm water. She put 1 paper towel in the bottom of 1 cup and another paper towel in the bottom of the other cup. So now we have 2 cups with warm compresses in it. She comes back to me, she brings these to me, and she says, "Put these over your ears." Okay, I've done a lot of weird stuff in my life. This is the weirdest. But I am really miserable, so I do it. I have never felt relief like that before. It's absolutely wonderful. The plane lands, I'm okay. Can I repeat it? I get on the plane the next day and I ask again for the same assembly. It works. I have found the answer. I can't do any of that other stuff, but I have found that what I need to do is this particular thing. So now I'm doing a lot of flying because of my work, and I routinely ask for what I now call my big ears. And the flight attendants actually know this. They bring, no questions, they just bring them to me. I do it. I do this repeatedly, many, many times, years. And then one time I got on the airplane. Plane goes up, plane goes forward, plane begins to descend. I ask for the ears, I get them. I'm doing good. A little while later, the flight attendant comes up to me and she says, "Sir, I need to pick up your service items because the plane is about to land." And I said, "Well, remember, ma'am, remember, I'm the one with the ear problem." She said, "Oh, I understand. But I need to pick up the service items because the plane is about to end." So I thought, well, maybe she didn't understand. Remember, man, you know, the eustachian tube, the pressure, you know, all that stuff. She said, "Sir, look, I completely understand what you're talking about, but I can't land the plane until we have the service items." Now, I'm getting a little more indignant. I need these cups. "Sir, I must have these cups." "I must have these cups." "Sir, you gotta give these cups to me." Now, I don't know what cups and landing the planes have anything to do with each other. But what I do know is that everybody in the plane is gotten quiet because they're listening to the 2 of us going back and forth together. And then she decides that one of us needs to be an adult because it's not going to be me. She brings her voice down and she says, "Sir, I need you to know something. This really doesn't work. This is what we give kids when we want them to actually think about something else. This does not work. And I need to tell you something else. And I'm going to try to be very gentle about this. You look pretty stupid." So, I give her the cups. But now I have a problem. Because I don't want to be the person at seat 22D that asks for cups. And then the airline people go in the back and they say, "Oh, 22D asks for cups. They don't work, but we're going to have a good picture. Let's make certain that we take a photograph of it this time." I don't want to be that person. So I've got to figure out, what am I going to do? So I decided, I'll get my own cups. I don't need theirs. And so I started getting my own cups. Now, I didn't always have the warm compresses, and I found that I didn't always need them, but I had the cups. Plane goes up, plane does its thing, plane comes down, I put my cups over here. I do this repeatedly. On one time, I was running very late for the flight that I needed to get, and I didn't have any of the supplies that I needed. I needed to go to the drugstore, get some toiletries, so I go and I get toothpaste and mouthwash, and also I need to get a lot of cups. Now, I have my backpack, which is going to be my luggage that I take on the plane. I put all of this stuff in there, I get in the plane goes up, plane goes forward, plane begins to descend, I pull out my cups, I'm doing fine. Except, there's a woman sitting next to me who is trying not to see me. She is seeing this big man sitting next to me with these big cups over his ears, and she's trying to ignore it. Now, I see her, and I see how uncomfortable she feels, and I've got to say something. I've got to do something to help put her out of her misery, because I can see how uncomfortable she feels. And so now we're kind of looking at each other, and she's trying not to look at me, but she can't. She has to continue to look at me. And I say the only thing that I know to say at that particular time. I said, "Ma'am, would you like a cup?" She continues to look at me. And I think, oh, that was probably the wrong thing to say at that particular time. And she just stares. And then she says, "Yes, I would." This is good. I have extra cups. I give her cups. Now we got these two adults sitting there over their ears. Now sitting next to her, there's a man who is seeing all of these things happening. And he starts looking around the plane to see if he can find another seat, someplace else to go. And then he looks down at me and he says, "May I have some too?" And I thought, this is good. I've got extra cups. I give them some. Now we have 3 adults sitting there with cups over their ears. I don't know these people. I don't know if they know each other. I have no idea who they are. But we are all sitting there. The plane lands, and we get off the plane, don't speak to each other, and now I know that every time I get on the plane, I must always have one of those neck pillows. I need to have a book, and I need to have extra cups. Because I have learned that I know why I need them, but I have learned that at 30,000 feet, sometimes there are other people that need big ears too.
Does that really work?
It really does.
Okay. Gremlin on the wing by any chance? Okay, our next storyteller is Iman Moawad. Did I say that correctly? Okay, good for me. I'm running 2 for 2 tonight. When she's not saving babies as a pediatric clinical pharmacist, you can find her hanging on the Esplanade with friends or searching for the cutest coffee shop in Boston. Have you found it?
I really like Agua in Brookline. That's a cute new one. It's a Yemeni coffee shop. Still looking though.
Oh, still looking, still looking. All right, well, Iman, thank you.
I just parked my car and I'm rushing because as usual I am late. I'm running to the Huntington Theater and I come up across the corner and out onto Huntington Ave and I stop because the Christian Science Center, Science Plaza, is lit up and it's beautiful. That big tree-lined path, there's all the twinkle lights. The church itself is lit up beautifully. The reflecting pool is reflecting all of these lights and it just looks really, really beautiful. I stop and I snap a quick pic and I send it to Mustafa and I say, "Boston's all dressed up and it's waiting for you." And the reply comes quickly. He says, "I can't wait to meet Boston and its queen." I had been talking to Mustafa for about 3 weeks at that point. We had met on a dating app. I had previously had a pretty bad experience, many strange encounters with this dating app, ranging from just mildly cringeworthy to completely terrible. But a couple years prior, I had met somebody who was really, really wonderful. And once you're past your 20s, you kind of have to look for more than butterflies and vibes. You have to match on the important things. And I did with this person. We matched intellectually and academically and emotionally and spiritually, and we just had a lot of fun being together. I both felt like I was meeting a version of myself that I had never met before, but also like it was my truest version of myself. So it was, a lot to think about. And it took a while to get me there, to have that trust and know that this was like an important person in my life. So when it ended several months later, my trust was kind of below sea level. So when I got back on this app, I really didn't have much hope. I was sort of half-heartedly talking to some guys, and Mustafa sent me a message, and it was a very sweet, polite message. He was very handsome, but almost like too handsome, kind of like those like ads for like, handsome older men in your area are waiting to talk to you. That's what that and I was a little bit suspicious. I watch a lot of true crime and I listen to podcasts, and I was like, this seems a little odd. But as Gen Z says, do it for the plot, right? You want to know what's going to happen. So I was kind of like, okay, let's see where this goes. And by this point, I was fully calling him the catfisher to all my friends. Right from the beginning, there were several things that were off. I told you about the pictures. He said he was Pakistani originally and grew up in the UK, but he did not have a trace of either of those accents, and I went to an international school, so I know accents. He said he lived in Chicago, but he had a Florida area code. He never mentioned having lived in Florida. He didn't have a LinkedIn profile or any social media. He didn't even have WhatsApp. And I'm in approximately 47 WhatsApp chats with my cousins in Egypt and my friends from high school. So I know that anybody who's even the least bit international or even has just been to Mexico once has WhatsApp. So this was bizarre. And I was suspicious. He also his story was kind of inconsistent at times. So my alert was up. I had listened to a podcast called Sweet Bobby about a catfishing situation in the UK, and then the Netflix special came out, Sweet Bobby, my catfish nightmare. So I was very well versed with sort of like the techniques of their, very like dramatic love bombing and these like sudden dramatic situations and giving you nicknames early on to sort of feign this like closeness. And a few days in, he started calling me Nefertiti. And granted, my family is Egyptian, but I still felt like this was a little racist. I didn't think he was going to be calling his UK girlfriend Queen Elizabeth, so I wasn't a fan of this. But there was still like a little part of me that wanted to believe that maybe this was a good guy. Maybe there were things that could explain this. He was an independent contractor, so that's why he didn't have LinkedIn. Maybe he was just a little socially awkward, so that's why he couldn't really, he had this like love bombing situation going on. Maybe he was a big Harry Potter fan, and when he moved to the US, his first stop was Orlando to go to Harry Potter World, and that's why he had Florida going. I was trying to make up, social media is evil. Maybe he didn't want to have social media, so, that was okay. One day, I got a call, and it was very urgent, and he said, this project I'm overseeing in Turkey, this engineering project, is failing, and I have to fly to Istanbul immediately. And I was like, okay, sure. And he said, but are we going to be able to keep in touch while I'm in Istanbul with the time difference? And I said, well, I'm going to California, so we're going to have an even bigger time difference to visit my sister. And he was like, well, we have to be able to keep in touch. And he was like very serious about this. And I was like, I'll do my best when I'm visiting family. We talked while I was in California and he was in Turkey. He would send me sort of these like nondescript images of a work site in Turkey. And he tried to, I forgot to tell you guys the biggest red flag. He also, his text messages were green, no offense to the Android users. Made me a little nervous. So because of that, I told you he didn't have WhatsApp, he also didn't have FaceTime. So he wanted to video call with Skype. Like it was 2011. So this was odd. So while I was in California, he tried to Skype me a few times, and this was a little bit reassuring because I was like, okay, he must be who he says he is if he's trying to Skype me, but it just was never a good time. We were never able to connect. But at some point he started talking about visiting Boston. He was like, when I come back from Turkey, I would love to stop by Boston to meet you. It'll be my birthday. We can celebrate my birthday together. And this seemed a little intense, but I'm not getting any younger, and do it for the plot. So sure, come to Boston. And then he asked for my address because he said he wanted to send me something. And I watch a lot of true crime, and I knew this was a bad idea. But then he started joking about sending it to my work. that he was going to send it to the hospital where I work. And this was more mortifying than a potential criminal having my home address. So I gave him my apartment address. I got home one day to find a big box, and in that box was a heart balloon, a heart necklace, a teddy bear, a box of chocolates, and 50 long stem red roses. It felt like somebody had asked ChatGPT how to express love to a human. And I was really not about that. But of course I can't be rude, so I thanked him profusely. So at this point, I got the gift on Wednesday. We Skyped for real on Thursday, and it was really him. It was short, but it was really him. And I was like, okay, I can trust a little bit more now. At least he's who he says he is. And we were planning what we were going to do for his birthday. I was going to, make reservations and get tickets to a comedy show. And we hung up, and I didn't do those things, even though I love making reservations. But I didn't do those things, so I still wasn't fully comfortable. Thursday night, I got several frantic text messages saying, I need your help. He said, something went wrong on the work site. I was rushing to get to Boston to see my Nefertiti. And we made a mistake, and 2 of the transformers blew. And now we need to order 2 new transformers, but the internet's bad, so I can't get into my bank account. Enemy here. Would you be able to log into my bank account and pay this invoice for me? And I was like, do it for the plot. Let's see how this goes. I logged in, he said, it's Affiliate Trust Bank, and I said, what is that? And he said, just Google it. So I Googled it, it came up, the website looked a little funny, but as soon as I logged in with his information, because he trusts me so much, because we're so in love, in the big corner it said, $1,970,000. And I know I was supposed to be impressed that he had this amount of money just like chilling in a bank account, but I'm a numbers gal, and it just like was really bothering me that it was 0 cents. Like, did this bank round to the nearest $10,000? Like, how is it possible that he had that exact amount? So he sends me the invoice for Pennsylvania Transformers Technology, which is a real company. And the reason I know this is because I have a second tab open the entire time, and I'm Googling Affiliate Trust Bank scam, Pennsylvania Transformers Technology scam. Is Affiliate Trust a real bank plus scam? The whole time. So I pay the $64,000 from his money, and I go to bed. The next morning, my sister had come back with me from California. I said to her, something weird happened. I may have moved money for drugs with a Transformers Pennsylvania company as the front. I don't know what happened last night. And right then I get another phone call from him saying, hey, I need you to do that again. This time it's for $11,000. I log back in, but now, the bank account is suspended. Oops. And I say, oh, it says it's suspended. And he said, oh, let me call the bank and see what's going on with that. And he calls, and he says, oh, it's because there was suspicious activity. I was like, well, no kidding, brother. By this point, it is Friday morning, America time, which means it is Friday afternoon, Turkey and Europe time. So he says, they're not going to be able to fix it until Monday morning. So if we could just get this taken care of, I can probably still come by like Monday. And I said, well, I don't have $11,000 lying around. He said, oh, whatever you have is fine. I said, oh, let me move some things around and I'll get back to you. I hung up and I was like, do I trust my gut or do I take this risk for potential love? And it took me half a second. I was like, absolutely not. I blocked his number. I blocked his Skype account. My sister went into full investigative journalism mode. She looked up the website. It had been made a month prior. It was a fake website. I contacted the domain hosting thing, and I got them to take it down. I told them to be used for fraudulent activity. I contacted the app we met on, and I said, you need to contact whoever this man has talked to and tell them that he's a scammer. Which they agreed to do. I tried calling 1-800-Flowers to be like, who paid for these stupid roses? And they said, oh, well, they want to be anonymous, so we can't tell you. Do you want us to reach out and see if they're okay sharing their name? And I was like, absolutely not. The police will be in contact with you. I filled out an IC3 form, which is with the FBI, where you report internet crimes. They still have not gotten back to me, so I guess maybe they have a few more important cases. And yeah, I blocked him. We moved on. He continued to try to contact me. And he was still asking for help, and I didn't want to tell. I don't like being underestimated. I take pride in thinking deeply about things. And I was mad that he thought I was stupid, that I didn't notice these little things, but I didn't want to tell him the little things because I also didn't want to make him better or smarter for the next scam. But then he asked me for help again, and I just snapped. I was like, you don't have WhatsApp, you don't have social media. The bank account had like reversed images on it. Nothing made sense. The headquarters is an H&M in London. And he goes, H&M? And he sounded legitimately confused. And at this point I was like, are you being scammed too? Like, did you give somebody $1,970,000 and they told you they would put it in a bank account? Because he sounded very confused. And then he said, well, that's why I have to fly to London to figure it out. Can you send me money for a plane ticket? And I said, absolutely not. But what I should have said was, send me your passport and I will book the flight for you. I would love to see your picture. So after that, he realized it was kind of, not worth the effort. I'm so sorry that he lost all that money on those beautiful roses. And so while Boston's queen is still looking for her king, at least she learned to trust her gut along the way.
I like Sky. I like Sky. No, I'm just kidding. Anyway, thank you so much for that great story. Please welcome to the stage Don Picard, Cambridge resident and software developer for over 30 years. Don admits that telling stories about his kids, husband, and extended family is a great form of therapy. Welcome, Don.
That sounds good. Does it sound good?
Yeah.
All right. Wow. I feel like I'm in a Steven Spielberg movie.
Bluetooth disconnected.
Okay. So my husband and I decided to form our family through adoption, and so we adopted 2 children a few years apart. When our daughter was born, my sister-in-law's advice was, don't kill the baby. Because we did adopt infants. We met our daughter when she was 1 day old. I thought that advice should apply more than the first year, just from a parenting point of view. And we were successful, but for me, parenting is kind of this weird transition you had to make, because initially it's like they depend on you for everything, and you protect them from everything. You need to make sure that they don't get sick and they don't get hurt. But you're supposed to transition to a place where you allow them to experience life. and they will get sick and they will get hurt, and you need to let that happen because they need to know how to survive on their own. Like, that's part of the role. You're supposed to make this journey with them, where the older they get, the more responsibility they have. And I remember, in psychology class, that I remember that there was this thing where infants actually know, just instinctually, not to walk off a cliff. They actually have depth perception and fear. And so, even if you just try to make it so that it's a safe space where they can crawl, they will actually stop crawling if they see a sudden drop. And so they have survival instincts, and I should just trust and allow that to happen. And that all seemed reasonable until my son was a teenager, because at that point I was no longer convinced that he wouldn't walk off the cliff. Hormones and life just being what it is, we just had some fear. And my husband's way, since we're both engineers, my husband's way of dealing with this fear is the thing that I think many parents do, which is use modern technology to track their children. Our son had, a mobile phone, and we insisted that he had to be on Find My Friend so that we could know where he is at all times, which was not something our parents did with us, but I'm sure it was just because they didn't have access to that kind of military technology that we have today. I'm sure they would be making those choices if things were different. apparently a 15-year-old doesn't really like to be tracked like that. We were visiting family on the island of Nantucket, which I'm sure everyone knows is a pretty sketchy place to be. And he had a curfew, and he needed to be back at the house by 10 o'clock. And he was out with his cousins are older, and he apparently was having fun. And 10 o'clock came and went, and nothing. And I texted him to find out where he was, and I got no response, which is not atypical. I knew he would never answer the phone if I called him, but if I did always thought I stood a chance if I texted him, but no. And as 10 o'clock became 10:30 and then quarter to 11, my husband Robert really started to get concerned. And so he used Find My Friends to track James, our son, who was on a beach. This next moment, I don't know how it happened, because we are two supposed adults, but we decided that the best thing for us to do at that time was to drive to the beach and confront our son, which we did. And we found him, and he was safe. Where else would he go? It's an island, and it's not even a big island, and not for anything, but our children are black, so they're pretty easy to find in the sea of white. Yeah, he did not like what we did, and he said, you have to stop this. And he turned off Find My Friends. He's like, I don't care that you're paying for the phone. Like, you're not allowed to do this anymore. And that actually was a good thing for us. Like, it kind of, like, my attitude became one of, like, it's okay to not know. Like, it's gonna be fine. He's gonna be fine. I grew up in a world where I couldn't be tracked. Why should I have that world for my child? And then I had tickets to see Hamilton with my best friend, and my daughter couldn't make it because she was sick, and so my son came with us, but then he decided to not go because he wanted to go to Chinatown to get a fake Rolex. It was a matinee, and I was like, it's the daytime, and I grew up outside of New York City, and I was really used to New York City, much more so than Nantucket, and so I figured he'll be fine, but I did take a picture of him anyway, so I could say what clothes he was wearing, just in case something happened, and I did imagine something happening, because like I'm a parent, and you don't go to happy places. Like, you go to dark places. And so I'm imagining the police confronting me saying, what were you thinking allowing your son alone to go wandering through Manhattan? And I would say, it was tickets to Hamilton. I didn't get to enjoy the first act because I was so worked up. But during intermission, he actually then was done buying his Rolex, and he was now near Times Square. I couldn't track him. He texted me to let me know that he was okay, so I got to enjoy the second half. And everything was fine for a couple of years, really. But then, we had COVID, and during COVID I was losing my mind, and we decided, because I insisted that we had to get a place outside of Boston, because I couldn't be cooped up all the time. And we got a house up in the mountains in New Hampshire, 2 hours away. It's not a lake house, it's not a fancy house, but it's a 5-acre wooded lot on a mountainside, and it's very peaceful and calm, and I just relax when we're there. And to my surprise, both of our kids liked going there. I don't know why, but I think partly, my son at this point is like 21 years old, and he goes up there with his friends, and they get to smoke weed, and it's safe. Like, nothing's gonna happen, they're just in the woods. And I'm working late one night, and it's the winter time, and I'm a software engineer, and I'm trying to fix something that just isn't working. And he calls me, and he's like, Dad, I'm going up to the house in New Hampshire. And I was like, when? And he was like, tonight. And I was like, James, if you leave now, you're not gonna get there until 1 in the morning. He said, yeah, but I'm going up, and friends are coming up after me. And I'm like, okay, have a good time. You're an adult, it'll be fine. And and I said, but James, also, it's been snowing up there, and it's a mountain road, and it's 3/4 of a mile up. And you have a Honda Accord. You're not really gonna make it to the house. And he said, well, if I can't make it to the house, I'll just walk up the road. I'll park at the bottom of the mountain, I'll just walk up the road, it'll be fine. great, okay, you're an adult, it's fine, don't worry about it. And I go about my business, and it's 1 in the morning, and I realize, oh, it's around that time that James should be getting to the house on Nantucket, at the house up in New Hampshire, and we have remote cameras up there because it is a house that we own that's far away, and so it has like satellite internet through Elon Musk, even though it pains me to pay him, the stuff actually works. And I decide to check the cameras just to see if his Accord is in the driveway. And I look, and there's no car in the driveway, and I'm like, okay, well, clearly he had to park at the bottom of the mountain, and he's walking up. And it just so happens that as I'm looking at the cameras, I see this lone figure walking up the Reston Mountains. He had done the 3/4 of a mile hike up to the driveway, and was now turning onto the driveway and walking towards the house. And I'm like, okay, well now I can just watch him go in the house, shut the door, and I'll be able to relax and go to sleep. And he's about I don't know, a third of the way up the driveway, and I then can see that he's not wearing a coat. It's winter in New Hampshire. It's well below 0. There's fresh snow. I'm sure he's fine. He's got on his backpack and a light jacket. I'm sure it's no big deal. And as I'm watching him, I notice he starts to like wander around in a circle, like he's just kind of like meandering, and I'm like, what the hell are you doing? And then I see that his backpack kind of slips off his shoulder and like lands in the snow. And then I see James just crumple and flat out in the snow. And I screamed. At 1 in the morning in my house, I screamed. I'm like, I have to call 911. And I remember that Tom, who lives on the mountain, says, if anything bad happens, don't call 911. It takes them like half an hour to get here. You call me, and I will get you to the hospital. And I'm like, I should call Tom. Like, Tom will help James. He's only a few feet away, but it's like 1 in the morning. Can I really call Tom? Like, I don't know what's going on here, but it looks like he's having a seizure. And I'm like, if I drive up there, it's like he'll be in the snow for 2 hours. There was like no good solution. And so I decided to just like wait, like maybe it's nothing, maybe he'll be okay. So I wait, and then I see him start to get on his feet, and he starts to stand up. And I figured, I know he won't answer, but I'm going to call him. And I will use my years as an engineer to make a medical diagnosis as to whether or not he's lucid. And I can see him raise the phone to his ear, and he answers, and he says, "Sup?" I was like, "Sup? Are you okay?" And he's like, "Are you stalking me?" And I'm like, No, I'm not stalking you. I just happen to, no, I'm not stalking you. I just need to know if you're okay." And he's like, "Dad, I'm fine. Go to bed." And I'm like, okay, that's all I needed to know. And I watch him, of course, get into the house, because even though I told him I would hang up, I have to wait and make sure he gets in the house and everything's fine. And I go to bed. And I know that this is going to be a conversation we're going to have in person, which happens about 2 days later when he's home. I was like, "James, I just need to know, like I was really worried about you. That's all I was doing when I called to ask if you were okay. And what was going on?" And he was like, "Dad, I was making snow angels." And then I suddenly realized, I suddenly saw it from my son's point of view. He had just hiked up 3/4 of a mile to a 5-acre wooded lot at 1 in the morning. He didn't pass a car, he didn't pass a person, he probably didn't even see any animals. He's in the definition of solitude. And he decides, after looking around, to enjoy what for probably the last time, a youthful pleasure, because he is all alone. And within seconds of him finishing this behavior, within seconds of having such joy, the phone rings. And his dad says, "Are you all right?" And I robbed him of this thing that he got to experience. I killed it within seconds of it happening, and I felt awful. He forgave me. I haven't quite forgiven myself. I would like to think that the next time this happens, I know I'm still gonna look. I know I'm still gonna check the cameras. I know I'm still gonna be worried about him. I just hope I can do it without being so obvious.
Thank you, John. Thank you very much. That was a great story. Our last storyteller of the evening is Catherine Weber. Catherine is the producer of this show. In fact, she's more than the producer. She's organized this entire event, and we owe her a tremendous thanks for this wonderful evening. Because I think this is really what community is about, is it not? Telling stories?
Yeah.
So, Catherine, besides being a wonderful storyteller, is also the director of Art on the Trails, an outdoor art exhibition in its 10th year, which just got its funding again. Hooray! And to be done on the fields preserved here in Southborough. If you haven't been, it's really something to see. Catherine, over now to you.
Who are these tall people? Last month, I got fired by a robot. Me and 950 people at a large corporation received emails informing us that our jobs had been replaced by AI. 6% of the workforce they determined they no longer needed. You know, as a marketing professional, I use AI every day.
Bluetooth disconnected.
And the Bluetooth is disconnected. I write emails and press releases. I make all manner of business communications through AI. So when I had an interview for a new job, and the hiring manager said to me, "We'd like to know if you'd be willing to learn how to use AI." I almost burst out laughing, but I managed to contain myself. I didn't want to say to him, "You know, I got this interview with a cover letter I had written by AI." But I don't just use AI for business. I use it for psychotherapy. I've been in therapy for many years, and it's not covered anymore by my insurance. And frankly, Claude AI can do the work in 10 minutes that would probably take 6 months and a second mortgage. So I decided to talk to Claude about a relationship. Some of you know I'm a widow, and I'm 7 years a widow, and I finally got a boyfriend. But things weren't going great, so I told Claude the whole story. I told him, for the sake of choosing a gender, about my situation. I gave it great detail. And Claude was incredibly insightful, asked me a lot of really good questions, which I answered. And after about 10 minutes, he said, "Would you like me to write a script for you to break up with him?" I didn't answer Claude because I knew he was right. But I wasn't ready yet, so I took it under consideration. And eventually, I broke up with my boyfriend because of Claude. Now, I walk in Beals Preserve here in Southborough every morning. My dog and I meet another 3 dogs and their parents at 7 a.m. every day, rain or shine, snow and cold. And this past winter, we were kind of saying how much we really wished that there was an espresso machine somewhere in the woods because it was cold. We joke about it all the time. And then, just a few weeks ago, we noticed that the Southborough Open Land Foundation was putting up a shed. And I was like, our espresso bar! So I took a picture of it, and I went to Google Gemini, the AI that deals with images. And I gave it some very specific instructions. And within a few minutes, I had the most beautifully designed espresso bar you could ever imagine. And I sent this picture to the trustees of the Southborough Open Land Foundation, and I said, we'd really like you to reconsider the use of this shed. And not only did I immediately get back on what a great idea, they said, can we make it a wine bar at 4 o'clock? And they said, what about live music? We could make this a real profits, for the Open Land Foundation. Next thing you know, I hear that the carpenter who's building the shed has now seen this, and he thinks we're serious. But we know, if any of you are from Southborough, about our zoning board, and it would never fly. So it was a nice idea, but we had to move on. And from here, I'm going to talk to you about technology. I'm 61 years old, and when I was in college, I had a typewriter to type my papers. And I saw the internet come, and email, cell phones, social media. And every step of the way, my career changed. Every step of the way. And I realized that back in the Industrial Revolution, when they were smashing looms, the Luddites, do you remember the Luddites? They were worried about laborers losing their ability to weave their own fabric. And so they went into factories and they smashed the looms. And I thought, imagine if we were still weaving our own fabric. We need to accept that this technology, including AI, is not going anywhere, and we have to embrace it. As much as we think how evil social media can be and how evil our cell phones are, we can't live without them. So I came to the conclusion that at this crossroads in my career, when some people are asking me what my retirement plan is, talk to Michael later about that, that I'm not only going to embrace AI, I'm going to learn how to talk to the very robots that took my job. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, now that Bluetooth is off, I will have to address you using the stentorian tones of my own voice. I want to thank you again for coming this evening. If you are not already a member of this organization, I urge you to do so. Not only will it save money when you come back to our next storytelling event in the fall, which I hope Catherine will host for us. This is the beginning of a great adventure for us. This is the start of a revival of this building that has been vacant for 50 years. And I think evenings like tonight really, really attest to why we went through the hell we have gone through for the last 5 years. So thank you all for coming. We hope to see you here soon.